Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, friends. Or actually, welcome, beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. There we go. Had a little stumbling block there, but I'm growing towards success. That's so lame. Welcome. I am so excited that you've joined me in my book garden, actually my basement, but we're having fun, so it's all the same. This is our third session reading the second Little Mushroom, so Little Mushroom Revelations, and I am so excited to have you here. I see someone is actually here, so welcome. I hope you are having an absolutely fantastic day, whether it's beginning or ending. Hi, Kiki. I'm getting it. Slowly but surely, I'm getting it. Hello. Welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. Well, we are waiting for other people to come. If there are any other people, I will do the logistics. I am reading Little Mushroom, a book that I own no affiliation to. I'm not sponsored. I don't get anything from this other than the enjoyment of doing it. And the only thing that I do own is this physical copy that I am reading from and my time. Other than that, this is just because. So, don't come at me. But anyway, super excited to be here. I actually did something super dorky, which I'm going to show now. I need to make sure I put my tea somewhere where it's not going to fall like it did one of the other times. Then I can show you. So there we go. I went out and I bought a number of mushroom t-shirts because why not? So this one actually says Born Towards the Sun, Positive and Brave at the bottom, like right down here. And I was like, why not? Hi, Mars Rover. Welcome to both of you. I'm so glad you guys are here. My beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick to the 3, but we can call the singular our blooms. Cute. Yeah, I like it. I've got a different one that's kind of more botany based instead of psychedelic mushroom style. Right? But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Kind of where we left off, we discovered that things kind of. You now have an Anji cosplay? That makes me so happy. You're gonna have to somehow send it. I guess I need to figure out. Either you send me Insta or maybe I'll post my Insta. But I would love to see it. I actually am working on putting together one too. I have a con next month. Thankfully, we will finish our book before the con starts, and I'm playing around with the idea of either starting another book and just having a Thursday where I don't read, which kind of then it would be a whole week between chapters, or just kind of taking a week off because it's around that span. We'll see when we end. You know how I say, oh, we're going to do 4 chapters, and it turns into like 9. So we may finish even earlier than expected. But no, that's so exciting, Kiki. Like, I would love to see it. You can either like message me there, like here. I really need to make an Instagram just for this. I will get on that, and maybe sometime this week, maybe tomorrow, I will work on getting like a separate Instagram for this. But that's so amazing. Yeah, I've got overalls, I've got the white shirt, and I just need the ammo casing, which if you go to like just your local shooting range, if you don't have direct access to somebody who owns a gun, You can probably just ask them for some brass, and I don't see why they wouldn't give it to you. But I don't know. I'm going to be doing that myself. I initially asked my brother, but he kind of was like, I live a couple states over. Like, you could just go down the road and ask somebody. So, no, that's awesome. Anyway, I was about to do the summary, but I got happily distracted. But yeah, we were in just this little town, kind of a ghost town. There were the two monster fights where it was the amorphous blob and the metal falcon, and we just found out that things are morphing together with the very ominous statement from the grandfather that it's almost time. And they're trying to fix the communicator, and it's going beep, beep, beep. And we end that chapter with the line, yeah, there was a lot of creepy fusion. Before losing consciousness, he only had one thought. So this is Anji. I hope the spore doesn't fall out so soon. Okay, so he's like, I hope I'm not about to give birth right now. That would be totes awkward. Like, oh my gosh, so awkward. My crush is here, got a kid freaking out in a corner. Everything's going topsy-turvy. I cannot deliver this baby right now. It is not the time. But yeah, okay. One quick sippy sip, then we shall start. That's a little hot. That just means it's gonna work. Okay. Chapter 38. But I met you. Lastly, he saw Lu Feng's face. He had never seen such a perturbed expression on the colonel's face before. He wanted to say something, but no words would come out. His vision went black, and his body was an empty hollow. Gently, a thread of something broke inside his body. It hurt so much. Then the second thread broke. He strove to understand what had happened. At last, his consciousness seemed to turn into a pinprick of light in the void. He finally saw what was happening. The slender and snow-white thread gradually elongated until it was almost transparent, fragile to the point of being frightening. Snap! With a pain like that of a needle stab, it broke. His spore. The hypae from his body were connected to every single strand of the spore's hypae, and now these strands were snapping one after another. It wasn't that he was letting go of his own accord. It was the spore taking the initiative to leave. No, that wasn't it either. I wonder what it is. It was the time of maturation, and the power of life was separating them. Anji could stop nothing. It was difficult to say what sort of deep sentiments there were between a mushroom and its spores. Their relationship was by no means like that of human parents and child, but he still did not want the spore to leave him so soon. It was still so dangerous outside. If the spore left him, no matter what it encountered, it would meet a premature end, especially if it was Lu Feng. But he had lost all his senses and could say nothing. He could only desperately speak to the spore in his heart. Don't come out. Don't come out. It's too dangerous. When there were only 3 strands of hypae left, his fear of death reached its peak. Don't come out. I'm begging you. As he dripped with cold sweat, his eyes flew open. Before his eyes was the ceiling. He slowly blinked, then gave a sudden start. It was still there. He could still feel the spore inside his body, the 3 strands of hypae tenuously holding it. Fortunately, it appeared to have settled down, seeming to have finally decided to obey his request. Then, The doctor's voice unexpectedly came to his ear, and at first he dazedly thought he had returned to the base. Only in the next moment did he realize that it was the sound of the communicator. After fixing the distorted copper wires, Lu Feng contacted the base as expected. He felt a sense of loss, although it was not right. I'm telling you with certainty that humankind is coming to its end. The doctor's pessimistic view came from the communicator. Anji moved a little and discovered that he was lying in Lu Feng's arms and that Lu Feng's coat was draped over him. Oh, that's cute. Lu Feng saw that he had woken up. He seemed to want to say something. Anji signaled with his eyes for Lu Feng to focus on continuing the call, then weakly rested his forehead against Lu Feng's chest. God, they're just so cute already. Like, we're getting fed tonight. This isn't some predictable disaster, after all. This is a mass execution. I can tell you it's the mass execution of all of the living things, non-living things, and all laws of physics. Lu Feng said, I've seen the fusion of materials. It's not called fusion. Our latest definition is distortion. The distortion of the whole to the microscopic level. Did you know? Underneath the microscope, a silicon atom changed into something we don't know. This is not genetic contamination at all. It's a change at the quantum level, something we can never observe. According to the uncertainty principle, we can't overcome it. Ever. Even if technology advanced another 10,000 years, we could only accept death, the doctor said. We currently only know that the magnetic field can protect the Earth from the effects of the change. After the two bases increased the strength of the magnetic field, the distortion stopped temporarily. But you know, the situation is always worsening. It seemed that his nervousness made him chatter away. In the past, infection only occurred with serious injuries. But afterward, infection occurred with light injuries as well. And after that, infection occurred with mere touch. And finally, infection occurred without any contact. I thought this was the worst case scenario, but you know what? The basic structures of the world are in chaos, and it's obvious that the process is gradually strengthening. The world is becoming more and more chaotic. Our magnetic field can stop it for now, but what about later? What about when not even the highest strength of the artificial magnetic field can ward it off? The maximum intensity of our magnetic field is level 9, and it's currently at 7. We're almost at the end. Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or in half a year at the latest, our artificial magnetic pulse will break because of the distortions. The base hopes you can come back, but in fact, if you want to find a place to spend the rest of your life, I absolutely won't stop you, he said. The end is coming. Lu Feng said, I understand. If you haven't found Nanji, there's no need to keep looking. Spare him. Spare yourself. And live well. In any case, you'll die soon, the doctor said. Even if you bring the sample back, we won't get any research results. This isn't something science can do. Although the base still wants to fight for the last glimmer of hope. After a pause, the doctor said, I've fallen apart. Sorry. Been infected by the pessimism of the base. Don't listen to a single one of my words. The sample must be brought back. Since the sample is inert against infection, it may also be inert against distortion. This is the last breakthrough point. The final hope. Either you die out there or you bring it back. But according to Anji's actions when he suddenly disappeared, he may be a kind of xenogenic with very strange abilities and form. You must be careful. The doctor's resigned tone and erroneous estimation of his strength made the corners of Anji's lips curl up. But at the same time, he understood that the base was still fixated on his spore. Rest well, Lu Feng said to the doctor. I've already sent the coordinates to the United Front Center. The communication line was cut off. Lu Feng looked at Anji. Are you okay? He asked. I'm okay, Anji said. Lu Feng asked, What happened just now? Anji shook his head. You don't know either? Anji said in a small voice, That's not it. Then he said, I can't tell you. He suddenly found that Lu Feng's eyes were frighteningly cold. Lu Feng's fingers gently smoothed his hair. His voice was flat as he said, So you can't tell me about the sample either. Anji hung his head. Regarding the spore, he had nothing to say. It was like this before, and it was like this now. In this world, peaceful times were illusionary. Like a dream coming to an end, he and Lu Feng ultimately returned to a few days ago. Arbiter and xenogenic, pursuer and pursued. He wouldn't hand over the spore, and Lu Feng wouldn't spare him. He was unwilling to look into Lu Feng's eyes, so he could only change the topic. Is the base in very bad shape now? Mm-hmm. Then are you still going to go back? Yes, Lu Feng said. But the doctor said, There's no more hope, he said in a small voice. Then he realized the stupidity of his sentence. Even if the base was about to perish, it was impossible for Lu Feng to not go back. After a long silence, Lu Feng said, I am a person of the base. Ji pursed his lips. Lu Feng belonged to the base, just like how he belonged to the abyss. It was impossible for them to peacefully coexist. Lu Feng had already sent the coordinates to the United Front Center, and he refused to divulge the spore's whereabouts. He couldn't imagine what would happen to him next. He looked at Lu Feng. In the sheets of rain outside, the light was dim. He could neither clearly see nor understand Lu Feng. As the world's changes became more and more mad, even the doctor said the words, Humankind is coming to its end. In the final moments before humankind's extinction, what was Lu Feng thinking? He did not know. He just quietly looked at Lu Feng. Sometimes I think that if the base is bound to perish in my lifetime, Lu Feng said, his voice very low, everything I've done before. He stopped and did not finish his sentence. This fluctuation in mood was like a ripple on the water, very swiftly frozen. Maybe a miracle will happen. Oh, that's Anji. I thought it was still Lu Feng. Sorry. Maybe a miracle will happen. Anji could only softly say that sentence. It was the only thing he could think of that might comfort Lu Feng. Lu Feng looked down at him. Do you think there's a possibility? I guess. Just like how this world is very big, but when something happened to your plane, you just happened to fall near me, Anji said. If that wasn't the case, you would have died. Supposing Lu Feng had died, there would also not have been the current Anji who had once again appeared in the early human city either. Everything would have been different. But Lu Feng only looked at him. As he lay in Lu Feng's arms, he simply looked down at him. In that pair of green eyes that were devoid of warmth, there was only a hint of chill. Do you have any idea how big the world is? Anji thought back. In his limited memories, he hadn't walked many roads nor seen many things. He was just an inert mushroom. But this world must be very big, for only then could the fall of Lu Feng's plane and subsequent landing in front of him be called a miracle. So he slowly nodded. He wanted Lu Feng to be a little happier, but the current Lu Feng was so frightening. Looking at Lu Feng's expressionless profile, Anji could not help cowering a little. You don't know, Lu Feng said, his voice icy. Couldn't possibly have landed in front of you by coincidence. As for why, it's because I had originally come to capture you. No. Anji couldn't bear his gaze. He wanted to leave, but he was held in Lu Feng's unyielding embrace. His voice went hoarse. There were many planes that day. You all were going to kill the bees. It was only after accidentally encountering me that you wanted to capture me. She's already been killed, Lu Feng said calmly. Anji opened his eyes wide. He asked shakily, Who? Lu Feng said, Her. Anji only heard a single syllable. He didn't know if that was him, her, or it. When this syllable was spoken from Lu Feng's mouth, there could only be one possibility. Madame Lu. He personally killed Madame Lu. Anji could hardly breathe. His chest heaved violently. Lu Feng looked at him and put his fingers to the side of Anji's neck. Together, his index and middle fingers pressed down on Anji's fragile and warm carotid artery. There wasn't the slightest hint of emotional fluctuation in his voice. The final mission is to kill you. Did you not hear the command from the communicator? Anji did. The pressure made his neck hurt a little, and he reached up to move Lu Feng's hand aside. But he could not push him away. With a sour lump in his throat, he said, But the world is so big. You didn't know at all that I was there. Lu Feng looked at Anji. In his arms, Anji was so small. The doctor had said that he could instantly escape the base and may be an unusually powerful xenogenic. But Lu Feng knew him. As such, a frail and little thing, it seemed that anyone could harm him, whether physically or mentally. Lu Feng did not clearly hear what he was saying. He only saw that the rims of Anji's eyes had reddened, as though he was desperately trying to prove that it was an accident, a coincidence. He seemed to be striving to deceive himself into believing something, so as to excuse Lu Feng. He took something out from his uniform pocket. It was a thin glass bottle as long as his thumb and filled with light green liquid. There was a label in the middle of it, and on the label a barcode and string of numbers that had been printed. As Anji looked at it, he asked, What is that? Lu Feng said flatly, Tracking agent. Anji had heard that name before. Remembered that Lily had once said she'd been injected with a tracking agent. Humankind's nomenclatures were always brief and to the point. One would know that this drug's usage as soon as they heard its name. The lighthouse said that by irradiating the tracking solution with a special frequency pulse, could acquire a characteristic frequency. After being irradiated, the tracking agent is split into two parts. One part is injected into the body, and the other part is preserved. By injecting the preserved tracking agent into the analyzer, the direction of the tracking fluid with the same frequency can be indicated, Lu Feng said, no matter how far. Anji curled his fingers around the ice-cold little tube and held it in his hand. Did you inject me with a tracking agent? His voice trembled slightly. When did you do it? I didn't know. As he spoke, a thought suddenly crossed his mind. His voice lowered, and there was a sour lump in his throat that made him almost unable to speak. Did you suspect that I was a xenogenic since long ago? You were able to pass all the judgment criteria, so I didn't kill you. Lu Feng's voice grew more icy. He pried Anji's fingers off, took the tracking agent, and put it back into his pocket. But I must be responsible for the safety of the base. She stared dumbly at him, and a single tear slid from the corner of his eye. He thought Lu Feng would wipe it away, but he did not. The wet trail quietly cooled on his cheek. Just now, Lu Feng had said very little, but it was enough to show his character. He had already mercilessly killed Madame Lu, the queen bee. He knew what kind of person the colonel was from the very first day. Perhaps it was the Lu Feng of these past few days, the Lu Feng who was good to him, who was the fleeting facade. After he had resumed communication with the base, where did Anji get the self-confidence to believe that Lu Feng had been giving him special treatment, and that he would spare him? In that manner, Lu Feng looked at Anji, who was still in his arms, as his eyelashes slowly drooped. In the end, he leaned against Lu Feng's chest and closed his eyes. Thus, the soft, wet glimmer in the little xenogenic's eyes was covered up as well. He seemed to have been heartbroken after the honest explanation of all of his actions, Lu Feng thought. Just like all the people who had died by his hand. But Anji opened his eyes again, and he tilted his head back to look at Lu Feng. His voice was very small, so Lu Feng had to lean in closer before he could hear it. When Madame Lu became a queen bee, she had completely lost her human mind, he said. She said to me, she didn't hate the base. She just wanted to experience new forms of life. She didn't hate you. In the death-like silence, Lu Feng said nothing. The time passed, minute by minute and second by second. When Anji reached up to touch Lu Feng's cheek to confirm that he was still alive, he saw the corners of Lu Feng's thin, cold lips curl up. His voice was very soft, yet certain. She hated me. Anji looked into his eyes. Madame Lu had said that Lu Feng would never get what he wanted, that he would die a miserable death, and that he would eventually go mad. He asked, "Why?" After I was born, her relationship with my father was discovered by the base. She was never able to freely meet him again. I killed my father and killed many of her children. When her little daughter escaped from the Garden of Eden with her help, she ran into me. In fact, the day you and I ran into Lily, her friend who had come to assist was standing on the other side of the road. Lu Feng seldom spoke at such length, and Anji had long ago gotten accustomed to hang on to his every word. When Lu Feng finally finished speaking, he was nearly out of breath. The silence lasted 3 seconds. The happy things in her life were very few, but I destroyed all of them, Lu Feng said. Just like everyone else in the base, she hated me. While looking at him, Anji opened his mouth. In the end, he finally knew what he wished to say. I don't hate you, he said. A long silence. Why? Lu Feng's slightly raspy voice suddenly sounded in his ear. What do you mean, why? He asked. Why can you, Lu Feng looked at him, always forgive me? Anji looked up at him, but what he saw this time was not that frosty Lu Feng. The colonel's voice trembled imperceptibly as he asked again, Why? Anji wanted to say it, but he couldn't. He didn't have as high of an intellect as humans, nor did he know that many of their words. He thought for a very long time. I understand you, he said. You aren't even human. Lu Feng's fingers clamped down on his shoulder. The look in his eyes was still as cold as before, but in his voice something seemed to fall apart. He asked almost shakily, What do you understand about me? He still wanted to ask. But Anji could say nothing more. He desperately shook his head. Anji could only be driven into a corner one step at a time by Lu Feng. He wanted to cry again. He did not know why this man would be so evil. Today, this man did not hesitate to cut open all of him. He himself was like a court justice who wished to acquit the criminal, but the criminal below the bench kept making declarations, aggravating his own misconduct. This person insisted on being tried, insisted on being sentenced to death. That was how much he wanted Anji to hate him. Anji did not know why things had reached this point. Clearly, at the very beginning, they had only been talking about whether the base could survive or not, about how this world was so big, and about how Lu Feng landed in front of him really was a miracle or not. Lu Feng had said that it was not, that all of it was premeditated, inevitable. But it wasn't. It really wasn't. But as he faced Lu Feng, he lifted his own arm. Those distinct human fingers gradually changed. Snow-white Haipe climbed up Lu Feng's black uniform and crawled over the arbiter's epaulets and silver tassels. Tears kept flowing from his eyes, and he could not clearly see Lu Feng's expression. He only knew that the hand Lu Feng was holding him with was trembling. He held him even more tightly. He knew that Lu Feng would be able to recognize him as the mushroom that had been rolling around in the abyss. He tearfully choked out, "But I met you." The world was so vast, and Lu Feng had insisted on going to the abyss. The abyss was so big, and he insisted on going to those open plains to roll around. They were originally not meant to meet. He had never hurt any person or any creature. He only wished to quietly raise his own spore. Had he been able to do so, he thought he might have been spared so much heartache and pain. But why would there be a human like Lu Feng in this world? This human held him with such great strength, it was like he wanted to kill him. With his back pressed against the bedpost, he desperately struggled. The struggle was utterly fruitless, but he was unwilling to turn into Haipe form to escape, reluctant to admit that he was outmatched. He recklessly bit down on Lu Feng's neck with all his might. It was only at the moment the taste of blood rushed into his mouth that Anji was dazed. "What am I doing?" he thought. But his chance was gone, for the brief daze was enough for Lu Feng to regain the upper hand. His shoulder was pressed down, his back hit the bedpost, and a hand forcefully lifted his jaw. Lu Feng forcefully kissed him. Wow! I was not expecting it to go in that direction, but I am not unhappy with it. Alright, I need to blow my nose and I need to take a sip, but ooh! Apparently he likes biting. Noted. Not surprised he likes a little bit of pain. Basically, his whole character is pain, so. Yeah, first kiss. Like, shocker. He likes pain. Hot. Okay. Chapter 39. I'm going now. His kiss was fierce, inexorable, and tinged with blood. Anji couldn't breathe at all. He turned his head away, but was then made to turn back. He had just been feeling sad for Lu Feng mere moments ago, but now he was trembling all over with anger. His Haipe spread out in big clumps. With only an instinctual resistance remaining, he thought to completely restrain Lu Feng. Don't. He's gonna like it. Ooh. But his eyes suddenly went blurry and a vision appeared before him. A figure fell over in front of him, and his heart clenched suddenly. He caught him and held him tightly in his arms. Anji? Suddenly, Anji realized that this was a fragment of Lu Feng's memories. He had drunk Lu Feng's blood so he would acquire some things. What had occurred just now was the scene from earlier in which he had passed out. Anji. Lu Feng called his name several times in a row. However, the person in his arms gave no response at all. He only frowned a little and trembled all over, as though he was enduring great suffering. Why would he suddenly become like this? Lu Feng did not know. Could only hold him tight. He seemed to suddenly be on the verge of death, just like this volatile world. In a daze, Anji experienced the feelings from that moment. Right now, his feelings and Lu Feng's were overlapping. Lu Feng was afraid. He was actually afraid. What was he afraid of? He was afraid of losing this person in his arms, as though by losing him he would lose everything. Anji began to tremble violently. This man, why was it that he could be so good to him, yet also treat him with such fierceness? The force on his shoulder made him wake up briefly from the vision, and his awareness was divided in two. One half of him was being kissed by Lu Feng in such a way that it was almost a punishment, while the other half of him was submerged in the memories of the past, witnessing this man holding him in his arms, repeatedly calling his name. But he couldn't be roused. He looked to be such a sorrowful, docile, and frail person, yet he was enduring such intense suffering. Feng wiped away the sheen of cold sweat from his forehead. He unconsciously grabbed Lu Feng's wrist like a drowning man clutching at a straw. At this moment, what was Lu Feng thinking? He was thinking, I can suffer in his place, can do anything, just so long as he wakes up again. Anji closed his eyes. He was still resisting, but with less strength than before, as though he had instantly lost heart. In the end, he could only give up all resistance and let Lu Feng seize his lips and his spirit, his everything. It was like an endless war. Amidst the endless stalemate, the intense emotions gradually became spent. When he was finally released, he leaned against Lu Feng's chest, having no desire to say anything. And Lu Feng held him, equally silent. The blank span of time was drawn out indefinitely. In the first place, there wasn't much to say between an arbiter and a xenogenic. In the long silence, Lu Feng suddenly spoke up. He asked, "How did you turn into a person?" "Because of Anji said. He leaned into Lu Feng's arms, the two of them having come completely clean to each other. That impulse-driven kiss, they had both cut the other open. Thus, he no longer had anything left to hide. In fact, he wasn't a xenogenic. He was very useless, unable to infect anyone. He was actually a mushroom who had been infected by a human." Lu Feng looked at his hype. The snow-white hype were still stained with blood that had been drawn when Anji bit down. Turned out that when this little mushroom became angry, he would also be very fierce. Why do I have a feeling that that's going to become his kink now? Making him angry so he bites him. The blood was disappearing bit by bit as it got absorbed by the hype. Anji looked at the same spot. He suddenly said, "You should just die." Lu Feng tightly held his fingers and asked, "Why?" "I'll grow on your body," Anji said expressionlessly, "and eat all of your blood, organs, and flesh, then grow on your bones." With his other hand, Lu Feng slowly gripped Anji's wrist. His fingertips slid over the white skin, leaving behind a pale red mark. Like he was damaged It was like he had damaged a white mushroom that had popped up after the rain, its juices flowing out. He asked in a low voice, "Do you know what you're saying?" Anji shook his head, a lump forming in his throat. With tear-filled eyes, he looked up at the walls that were covered with dark green traces of mold, at the distorted, flowing chandelier. Oh, yeah, that weird chandelier that was like melting. The strong winds had broken the window, and rain poured in through the radiating crack, accompanied by the wind's mournful whispers. He thought that he didn't know how to define his emotions either, but if he wanted to peacefully stay together with Lu Feng, there was truly no other path to take. In this manner, he looked at the unreachable sky. Lu Feng said, "You're crying again." Anji turned his head back to look at Lu Feng. At this angle, he needed to tilt his head back slightly. So they locked eyes. For this reason, while looking at Lu Feng, Anji smiled again. The corners of his lips were slightly reddened, and the corners of his beautiful eyes were still damp. So Lu Feng smiled as well. He held Anja's face in his hands. So silly. Anji only looked at him. After a very long time, he asked, "Is the base already coming to fetch you?" Lu Feng said, "Yes." Anji said nothing. Lu Feng asked, "Do you like this base?" Just as the word base was spoken, the pain of being electrocuted once again spread throughout Anji's body. He started trembling and forcefully burrowed into Lu Feng. Feng caught him and gently stroked his back. "I'm sorry." Anji shook his head. It wasn't until 3 minutes had gone by that Anji once again calmed down. He tilted his head back to look at Lu Feng and tightly held his hand. He seemed to be waiting for something, Lu Feng thought. He had that thought and acted on it. As though possessed by something, Lu Feng leaned down slightly and kissed Anji again. No violent movements, no resistance, just a deep and quiet kiss. Anji's soft lips no longer resisted. During the break, when they were catching their breaths, Lu Feng looked at him. Softly panting, slightly lowered eyelashes strewn with glimmering droplets, hands gently resting upon his shoulders. It was a timid ingratiation, a gentle innocence, so pure that it bordered on compassion. Within that compassion was divinity. It was like the alms offered up by a spirit, and right now he was demanding everything. But he was still crying. Lu Feng kissed away his tears, as if by doing so he could erase all the sorrows between them. By the time they were done, the rain outside had gradually come to a stop, and the evening sky was glowing with a cloudy pale light. Anji knelt on the bed, his fingers trembling as he held Lu Feng and slowly laid him flat on the bed. Lu Feng's eyes were shut, for he had fallen asleep. His breathing was even, and now nothing could wake him. Achieving this was very simple. During the kiss, Anji only needed to transform part of the tip of his tongue into soft typing. Not even the colonel could tell. The sleeping Lu Feng could not catch him. He could not do anything to him. Anji smiled. In fact, Lu Feng had never been able to do anything to him at all. He suddenly realized. To leave or to stay, he had to decide for himself. Suddenly, Anji's vision went black, and violent pain tore through him. The last taipa broke. Something was separated, like a human losing an arm or an eye, but no. wasn't those trivial things. The spore's existence was far more important than limbs or organs. His body suddenly became empty. It was a deeper and hollower emptiness compared to losing the immature spore. Like a rest in a piece of music, his connection with the world was abruptly cut off. The most important things were stripped out, leaving him with only a broken and declining body. A body. Anji was suddenly stunned. At that moment, he was sure that he heard fate whispering like a devil in his ear. Blankly looked forward and shakily lifted his hand. Right before this moment, he had assumed he still had a choice. Truly thought he could choose. But when it happened, he discovered that he had never had the leeway to choose. He was completely dumbfounded. The spore swam out of his body and he held it in his hand. Anji blankly looked at the little white thing and finally forced himself to smile at it. "I'm sorry," he said. What? He said, "What should I do? Do you wish to come with me? I may not be able to raise you." The spore's hype only rubbed against his fingers. It couldn't understand him, Anji knew, but the very next moment, the spore's hype began to slowly move in a certain direction all of a sudden. They left Anji's fingers, dropped down until they landed on the surface of Lu Feng's black uniform, continued crawling forward. Anji observed the sight. This wasn't the first time the spore took such an action. Smiling, he asked, "Why do you like him so much?" The spore stopped at one end of him and rubbed against his fingers again. It couldn't speak. Anji softly sighed and put it on Lu Feng. After being put down, it crawled to Lu Feng's chest with its newly born soft hype and spontaneously burrowed into his pocket. It was obviously so happy, as if it wanted to do this for a long time. Anji watched this sight. Just as he had not understood why the spore was so close to Lu Feng, he did not understand why things had suddenly reached this point. From the backpack, he took out a sheet of paper. He lay on his stomach in front of the tea table and wrote down a line of words on the paper. "It's mature now, unlike before. Just put it in a place that's always damp, and it'll grow. It needs a lot of water and fears rodent-class animals and bugs. If you wish to do research, please don't hurt it too much or let it die. Thank you for always taking care of me. I'm going now." After putting the note to one side, he reached into Lu Feng's chest pocket, took out the bottle of tracking agent, and unscrewed the bottle. Crash! The pale green liquid poured out and flowed away along the crevices in the floor. Finally, he let go. With a clear sound, even the bottle was broken on the ground. As though he had made one of the most crucial decisions in his life, he reached out, removed the badge on Lu Feng's chest, and put it in his own pocket. Lastly, he picked up the backpack that was lying to one side, took one final look at Lu Feng, then walked out of the room. As Sibei looked at him, he asked, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm going outside to look at the situation." "Okay." Sibei looked like he had calmed down a little. "Stay safe." Anji nodded. "Okay." He pushed open the door's rusty security door and took one step outside. At that moment, he looked back into the room, and his line of sight passed the skeleton on the sofa to arrive at the door Lu Feng was behind. That pale door seemed to hold a silent, attractive force. If it were possible, if he had no worries whatsoever, he also would have wanted to stay at Lu Feng's side, just like the spore. But he couldn't. After closing the door, he walked upstairs. The stairs were so high, and his body seemed to have lost all its strength again. Only after climbing for a very long time did he reach the top floor. Following the openings at the very top, Anji arrived at the roof. After a bout of rain, the atmosphere outside was frighteningly cold. For the few days that the artificial magnetic field disappeared and the atmosphere thinned, when he was still at the lighthouse, he had heard the scientists predict that the weather this year would be extremely unusual, that winter would arrive at least 3 months early. The winter of his life was about to arrive as well. The moment the spore matured, the instructions from life's instincts flashed before him. They thoroughly received fate's mysterious instructions. Just as how he had never again seen the mushroom that had raised him to maturity from the moment he landed on the ground, he was destined to be unable to protect his own spore so that it could safely grow up. It was dry outside, with gale-force winds blowing at any given moment, and monsters lay in wait. Even in the abyss that was free of rodent-class and anthropod-class monsters, may be unintentionally trampled by giant monsters or affected by conflict. At the last moment, he unexpectedly could only choose to believe Lu Feng, because he was dying. A mushroom's lifespan was not very long in the first place. He was already considered one of the most outstanding amongst them. Everyone had their own mission. Once he completed that thing, he had fulfilled the purpose of living. To a mushroom, raising its spores to maturity was its only mission. In the cold wind, Anji shivered slightly, and he hugged himself. Without feeling it, his body tottered. He had seen dead mushrooms before. When its spores fell, its cap would gradually crumble and curl up, then shrivel and wither, and finally all the tissues, the stem, hyphae, the roots, and the soil, would all melt into a pool of inky liquid, and then be consumed by the other things in the soil. Now, he was also about to experience the process he had witnessed countless times before. He did not know how long this process would take, but it would definitely be very fast, before humankind went completely extinct. When he left, he indeed wished to return with Lu Feng to the base, no matter what he would encounter next. However, he thought that he should just let Lu Feng assume he was living in the wilderness. The Arbiter had personally witnessed far too many deaths already. That's actually kind of sweet that he's like, I'm going to leave before he knows I'm dying. On the roof was a dilapidated garden. Hugging his knees, he sat behind a flower bed and faced the east to watch the nightfall and the sunrise. This place wouldn't be too far from the base. It was merely the distance a bee covered in a day's flight. In fact, just as he expected, when the sunlight penetrated through the thin morning mist and shone upon the city. Yeah, they really are so sweet, but so sad. In fact, just as he expected, when the sunlight penetrated through the thin morning mist and shone upon the city, the humans' armored vehicles had stopped at the public square in front of the residential community. Lu Feng must have already told them about the situation here. They brought sufficient heavy weaponry, and to a certain degree, they did not need to fear assaults from monsters. It was safe. For example, that massive eagle circled in the sky, covetously eyeing them, but it didn't dare to make any further moves. Gray clouds, eagles, sprawling ruins of cities, and motorcades of armored vehicles seemed like things that would appear only in dreams. The sound of the wind started up again. Anji watched Lu Feng's and Sibei's figures walk out from the building, and after a simple interaction with the military, they got into the vehicles. Anji faintly glimpsed the doctor's shape. After the vehicle doors closed, the motorcade immediately started up and left the dilapidated ruins. When Lu Feng left, would he turn back to look through the car window at the city? He wouldn't know. The place he should return to was the abyss. He had to return to that cave and find that set of white bones. Everything started from there. and everything would end there as well. The face of everything that was destined to go extinct. Lu Feng had Lu Feng's destiny, and he had his own destiny. And now it was all over. All right. So that was a beautiful and depressing chapter. Whoop! I'm slipping. I feel like I'm getting super nasally tonight, which I apologize. Sorry. You really don't need nose blowing ASMR in the link. Sorry if you're also hearing a lot of thuds. As I said, I'm in a basement, and my parents are moving around upstairs right now. So, is what it is. So I apologize if there's like weird thumps or noise, because they walk heavy. Okay. All right. Chapter 40. The most memorable few days of his life. Armored vehicle. Congratulations on making it back. We'll return to the base after a 15-hour drive. Lu Feng asked, "How is the base?" The distortion has caused widespread panic and confusion. Some of the precision instruments can no longer be used. Fortunately, the artificial magnetic pole can operate normally. Do distortions appear when the magnetic poles don't work? Yes. Feng said, "Over the past few days, some survivors and I were living in the magnetic iron mine, and no distortions occurred there. It's because of the magnetic field, which can resist distortion to a certain extent," the doctor said. "At the time, the lighthouse fell into chaos. With the last glimmer of hope, we in the underground city base exchanged all the research results from over the years, but we've got nothing at all. All of their research was also grounded in biological genes. Then I once again illegally accessed the communication channel that's connected to the Institute." Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. "After joint discussion and the combination of some clues such as the point in time when the distortions occurred, we believe all of this may be related to the magnetic field. So we've temporarily increased the strength of the artificial magnetic pole," the doctor said. "It's effective for now, and only by doing this have we gained some time to cling to life." The doctor leaned against the vehicle seat. "But according to the calculations, the distortions will gradually strengthen, then defeat us within 3 months." He paused and looked at the distant mist-adorned sky, as well as the circling brown eagle, and said, "However, to know that all efforts of humankind have put forth to survive from ancient times until now were futile, and become a witness to humankind's complete extinction, is actually also kind of an unimaginable honor." He looked at Lu Feng again. "To be honest, you're a little calmer than I imagined." "What, did you get hit?" the doctor said. "I don't know what kind of species that Anji thing was, all slippery like a fish. Could even escape from defenses as tight as the bases, so it's normal to not have been able to capture him. Even if he was captured, we wouldn't be able to keep him, so don't take it too much to heart." Lu Feng said nothing. He held out his hand. A soft snow-white thing rolled out of his sleeve. He looked at it. Strangely, a soft train of thought flooded his mind. It was like he had returned to some moment when Anji was quietly staying at his side. After night fell, they slept together. At first, Anji had his back turned to Lu Feng, but as he slept, he would always roll over and gently rest against his chest. When morning arrived, after waking up, not even Anji himself knew why this would be the case. At that moment, he would furrow his fine and beautiful eyebrows, then turn back again. Then Lu Feng held him from behind. Surprisingly, those turned out to be the most memorable few days of his life. That's kind of sad. Like, their relationship, I get it, is special, but that's also kind of really sad that that's the most memorable days of his life. The snow-white and soft hype affectionately wound around his fingers. The doctor was stunned. You got it back? You were actually able to get it back. Mm-hmm, Lu Feng said. Then what about Anja? The doctor spoke extremely quickly. Did you kill him? The spore seemed to have been startled by this person's suddenly raised voice. After shrinking a bit, it dove back into Lu Feng's sleeve. But a while later, it reappeared at his collar and affectionately rubbed against his neck. Lu Feng said flatly, He left. How could you be willing to let him go? What exactly is he? The doctor's eyes widened. Can he protect himself? Lu Feng touched the spore's soft hype with his fingers and did not reply. Beneath the gloomy daylight, the profile of his face was a silent silhouette. The doctor examined him, but then he suddenly frowned. Where's your gun? Anji stood on the rooftop. As he watched the motorcade disappear into the distant sky, he moved his stiff body, standing up from behind the flower bed. Yesterday's rainstorm had filled the flower bed with water, and some thread-like creatures were currently wriggling in the water, newly born as of yesterday. It's not bugs. But after the weather cleared up, the accumulated water would soon be dried out. After a brief new life, they would face eternal death. All creatures were like this. Would his spore live longer than these ephemeral creatures? He hoped this was the case. Anji patiently waited for an opportunity. When the eagle landed, he climbed onto its back. The eagle paid him no heed, perhaps because he was too light and too lacking in nutrients. Anji found a place to stay on its wide back. What really covered the surface of the eagle's body was not feathers, but scales, and in the crevices between the scales were intertwined translucent feelers. The eagle foraged for food in the city. After it devoured a meat-like vine and struggled for half an hour against a giant monster with bat wings, it lost the struggle and left the place. Anji marked its flight direction against Polaris and his map. After discovering the departure from the trajectory, he surreptitiously slipped away. And after taking root in the soil and absorbing a night's worth of nutrients, he hesitated for a long time before removing from his backpack a pitch-black gun and a dozen or so bullets. The gun was Lu Feng's, but it was only after Lu Feng had left that he discovered it in his backpack. The colonel would also make use of his belongings as though it were completely natural, including his backpack. So Anji guessed that it led to him leaving his gun behind. Using the sounds of gunfire, he successfully attracted a monster with butterfly wings to serve as a means of transportation. 3 days later, he landed again. While looking for the next target to hitch a ride on, Anji discovered an extremely ugly monster with a centipede-like body. Oh, that would be an instant no for me. I generally am fine with most bugs. Some of the bigger spiders kind of wig me out. I cannot stand centipedes. I hate them to the very marrow of my bones. I can't with all the legs. I can't. We get house centipedes here. I can't. It had many characteristics of ants and arthropod-class monsters, and it fed on mushrooms. Anji wanted to escape, but his body was already in very bad shape. Just as he was about to be completely eaten, Lu Feng's gun protected him. It accidentally struck the monster's soft belly, When it briefly paused, he took advantage of this moment to roll into a muddy brook and escape. The weather was getting cold, and those monsters who feared the cold began to travel south. Of course, they also preyed on each other in the process. Sometimes, across the boundless plains, there wasn't even the slightest trace of any living thing save for the occasional one or two extremely massive victors. Sometimes social animals migrated southward like a black torrent. Anji blended in and drifted down the stream. 10 days later, he finally got an indomitably southward flying bird. After more than 20 additional days, wow, that's a month. After more than 20 additional days, from atop the bird's soft back, he saw a massive, long, and narrow shadow on the horizon, like a scar on the world. According to humans, the abyss's core was a long and narrow fault zone created by a magnitude 8 earthquake during the Great Calamity Age. The radiation there was extremely abnormal, which gave rise to countless fearsome monsters. Further out from the core's fault zone, to the north of the abyss, lay a great vast plain that was densely covered with the vegetation, full of various kinds of mushrooms and a hibernation place for countless monsters. And to the south stretched a belt of rolling highlands and mountains. The bird came to the edge of the abyss and, tired out from flying, rested on the branch of a large dead tree that it had found. The tree branch suddenly began to tremble. The bird's feathers bristled, and it flapped its wings and screamed. At some point, masses of black vines had appeared on the branch. They had securely bound the bird's feet. Amidst the sound of fluttering wings, the snow-white bird was dragged to the center of the branch-laden tree. Its graceful neck arched high, and its long pointed beak reached out towards the gray sky as it struggled. But a vine wrapped around its neck. Then the sturdy vine split open, and a fanged mouth bit its neck in two. That's why you never trust, suspicious trees. It's the one that'll always get you. Man-eating tree. Or beast-eating tree in this case. Blood went spraying, and the 5 or 6 meter long bird's body was split in two. Tiny feathers and bits of down fell all over the ground. Holding the backpack in his arms, Anji fell to the ground together with the feathers. He got to his feet, stepping upon the rotting ground that overflowed with black water. After staggering a few steps, he looked up and watched as the bird was devoured by thousands of vines. Satisfied, the vines scattered. Honestly, it's such a good thing that he's a mushroom, because black water, oh my gosh, I have an official reference, but also just actual black water, so still water, so toxic. If he wasn't dying, he would be. The dense vegetation, vines within the forest, and the giant mushrooms blocked out the sunlight as well as the sounds of combat. This was the abyss, a place where a human could be eaten and the bones wouldn't be regurgitated. There were no rodent class or anthropod class monsters here, because they were too weak. But those creatures that were hundreds of times stronger than them were by no means invincible either. The soil of the abyss was rich in nutrition because it was saturated with flesh and blood, which may have been the reason why mushrooms could flourish. Across the uneven terrain, Anji walked. The ground that was covered with moss, dead branches, and fallen leaves was too soft and close to the swamp, so when animals moved over it, they made no noise. He clearly felt that the abyss's atmosphere had changed. Usually, slaughter and fights happened at any given moment, and powerful monsters often roamed the jungles to inspect their territories. But throughout his entire journey today, he had only ran into a silently slithering python. They seemed to have all gone into hibernation. But Anji paid no heed to the comings and goings of the monsters. He blankly stared at this boundless place where not even sunlight could shine in. To his left was a dark red mushroom 10 meters tall, settled amidst several massive rocks. Mucus that smelled like blood continuously oozed from its cap, and its giant body seemed to breathe, rising and falling in the air. Anji laid a finger against its stem and felt it get wrapped up by the mucus. He had never seen a mushroom like this before. Fear suddenly filled the expression in his eyes, and he averted his gaze to look elsewhere. Just then, his pupils dilated, his body went cold, and he began to tremble. He didn't recognize where he was. He didn't recognize this place. Then, heaving for breath, he sprinted pell-mell through the jungle. So that means like without a plan, like like if I want to use another obscure phrase, helter-skelter through the forest. He ran without a plan, very quickly, kind of crazily. All right. Also very fast. This was the abyss. The blood-soaked soil, the waterlogged swamp, the monsters looking in the dark. The abyss was still the abyss, but it was no longer the familiar place from his memories. The abyss was so big, just what did he have to do to find the place from before? He strove to think back, but he could only remember those distinctive mushrooms. Back then, he relied on them to remember his route. So he kept walking and searching constantly, using both his legs and his hype. Night came after day, and after night came morning again, but every single plain seemed familiar, and every single cave was utterly empty. There were no clues and no familiar places whatsoever. He didn't remember how many times he'd seen the sunset or how many times he'd been disappointed by empty caves. After some time had passed, he could not walk any further. His hype, no longer soft and dexterous as before, were dissolving and breaking off, and his human body was likewise weakening apace with the depletion of his life. At a quiet lakeside, a withered vine tripped him. A sharp stone sliced open his palm. He knelt on the ground and buried his face in his hands as he trembled all over. He couldn't find it. He couldn't find that cave. A mushroom's life had only one season. They would die when they got old, and new ones would grow again. The face of the abyss changed constantly with the intergenerational replacement of mushrooms. The original road, the road he had firmly committed to memory, was no more. Surrounded by mushrooms and dead trees, he looked at the sky in despair. He didn't know. He didn't know that things would be so merciless. Lu Feng was right. He had no idea how big the world was. He couldn't possibly find it unless his life was as long as eternity itself. But he was a mushroom. His existence ephemeral. There we go. He was destined to die while searching for that cave. Nothing in the world lasted forever. Not even the very first promise. Salty tears trickled over the tiny bramble inflicted cuts on his face. It hurt all over, but it was far from covering up the despair and collapse in his heart. He took a deep breath and blankly looked at the pool to his side. He fell into a daze. In the water, there seemed to be a voice, an indescribable frequency calling him to leave. The entire world went out of focus. Jump! Jump! Everything is over! Happy things, painful things, they're all no longer needed. Under the bewitchment of the voice's call, he walked one step at a time to the lakeside, where the water was so clear that his reflection showed. He and Anzi looked so alike. When the ripples blurred the lines, it seemed like it was Anzi in there calling to him. But one that was born in ignorance was likewise, however, one who would die in ignorance. In the abyss. In this sorrowful place. As though a switch in his memory had been flicked, a voice suddenly sounded in his ear. That was his own voice. There on the sad height, the voice murmured, curse bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. What is the meaning, he asked, of do not go gentle into that good night? Lin Zhu, the teacher of the Garden of Eden, replied, do not meekly accept destruction. After a short pause, it changed again. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. He slowly recited the verses to someone. That day they had walked a long way together, not knowing what was up ahead. On that day in the wilderness, bringing him along in the night, what had that person been thinking while walking amidst the sounds of the primeval wind? Facing the impending strange fate, did that person also have the same despair in his heart? How did he continue walking? Anji hung his head and discovered that he had once again gripped the Arbiter's badge in his hand at some point. The badge's points and edges prickled his hand, his already bloody hand. The illusionary daze instantly fell back, and he backpedaled a few steps. He thought, what was I doing just now? Sharp pain traveled up from his ankle, for the rock he had just cut his palm on now struck his ankle. He bent down to remove the sharp gray stone jutting from the flat ground so that it would trip no other creature, but then suddenly noticed something. There was a jet-black scorch mark on the stone that seemed like it had been made with a burned branch, forming a crooked, ugly arrow that pointed southeast. He fell into deep thought. According to his limited knowledge, the abyss did not have creatures that could draw arrows. And as for this kind of strange gray rocks, he seemed to have seen them once or twice before in other places within the abyss. But he had been single-mindedly searching for the cave, so he had paid them no heed. He looked around and finally chose to go in that direction, in the direction indicated by the arrow. He walked for a very long time, and yet another gray rock appeared, jutting out from the flat ground. Half of it was buried in the dirt, and half of it was exposed, and there was an arrow on the exposed portion. Anji continued walking. Not only gray rocks were marked. Sometimes there would be marks on tree branches or white bones as well. After 5 days passed, he discovered that he had been continually headed in the southern part of the abyss, approaching the highlands, where the environment was dry and harsh and where few creatures would go. But on the same day, he could not find any other rocks. He stood blankly under a tree and put great effort into scanning the surroundings, wondering whether he had gone the wrong way. Suddenly, a pebble struck his shoulder. "Are you lost?" A smiling male voice sounded behind him. He turned around. Unexpectedly, he heard a human voice again. A willowy and handsome black-haired man was standing next to a tree, a gray rock in his right hand. He blinked at Anji and said, "The guidepost is here with me. I haven't put it down yet." While looking at him, Anji slowly frowned. "Tang Lan?" He called out a name. "You recognize me?" The man's smile contained nonchalant and carefree undertones as he examined Anji. "I haven't seen you at the base before." "I haven't seen you before either." After double-checking this person's appearance, Anji said, "I know Hubbard." The moment he spoke Hubbard's name, the laid-back smile vanished from the man's face. Oh, man. So there's some beef between them. I thought there was romance, but now there might be something else. Wouldn't be surprised. All right, we just finished that chapter. This one's a beefy chapter. Oh my goodness. Yikes. All right. We are still going to read it. It's just the beefy one. I kind of was not expecting that turn. I mean, let's be real. I think we all were expecting it to be Lu Feng. Be honest. You were. Though that would have been too easy, right? Yeah. Sorry, just giving my throat like a 1 minute break. I enjoy doing this, but it definitely wrecks my throat. Okay. Chapter 41. Have you heard of the fusion faction? Hubbard. Tang Lan repeated the name in a murmur. He seemed to have lost his ability to speak. It wasn't until after more than 10 seconds had passed that he spoke up again. His voice was a little hoarse when he asked, "Is he doing well?" Anji recalled the visuals concerning Hubbard. The insect swarms had been wreaking havoc in the outer city. When District 6 was bombed, Hubbard had been on a mission outside of this city, which was a very brilliant move. He had not only avoided the devastation of the outer city, but also avoided being arrested by Lu Feng under the charge of illegally stealing the Arbiter's information. Afterward, he had safely returned with his team and was welcomed by the main city. And after that, this renowned mercenary team captain had still run into Lu Feng. Together, he and Colonel Liu had boarded the PL-1109 to go rescue the underground city base. While in the mine, he and Lu Feng had occasionally chatted. According to Lu Feng, Hubbard and Lu Feng had completed the rescue mission and returned safely together. He said, "He's doing very well." Tang Lan dropped his gaze slightly and seemed to smile for a moment. Did not ask anything else and only said, "That's good." Anji looked at Tan Lang. The first time he had learned of this person was in Mr. Shaw's shop, where he saw a mannequin so exquisitely made that it bordered on the real deal. Mr. Shaw had said that that was something Hubbard spent more than half of his life savings to order. Hubbard was the most renowned mercenary team captain in the whole outer city, and this man was his vice captain, with whom he shared a sworn friendship. Friendship. I'm just saying. After an expedition, he had never returned, and not even his body had been found. Now we know why. Next to the mannequin had been labels marked with various bits of data, and the first one was his name, Tang Lan. But now the living Tang Lan was standing before Anji and completely unharmed, like he hadn't been injured in the slightest. Surprisingly, he had survived in the danger-ridden abyss and was living quite well to boot. "You survived," Anji said. "You won't go back?" A hint of a helpless smile showed in Tang Lan's eyes. "I can't go back," he said. As he spoke, he buried the marked rock in his hand in the soil. "I have a map, so going back is possible," Anji said. "Do you need it?" "I don't," Tunlang said. "You aren't human, are you?" Anji was at a loss for words. Then he saw Tang Lan smile, take out a gleaming dagger, and carve an arrow into the nearby tree branch. As he carved, he asked, Do you know what I'm doing? Anji said, I don't. After being infected, the vast majority of people, unfortunately, turn completely into monsters. But there's also a minuscule number of people who are rather lucky. Sometimes they'll still seem like a human, Tonglan said. I'm guiding those lucky ones. I was originally guided in this manner. Oh, he got infected. Anji said nothing. He found that he had a special gift, which was the ability to recognize when a person wanted to tell a story. That is a gift. However, Tonglan's story was very short. That day, Hubbard and I got into a little spat. He wanted to continue going deeper, while I felt that it was time to go back. In short, it was very unpleasant. That night, I didn't see him again and kept the watch in another vehicle according to the rules. The abyss has all sorts of things. At midnight, a powerful monster found us. I'd never seen something so dangerous before. Tonglan finished carving the mark and put away his dagger. His voice was as clear and crisp as the person himself. I warned them and then led the thing away in a different direction. Afterward, I died, and it must have been a very miserable death. But somehow, I seem to have woken up again and also changed into something very strong. I merged with the monster, but I'm still lucid. Toying with the dagger, he asked Anji. What about you? Anji thought about how to word it. Just then, Tonglan whipped his head around and his gaze shot like a sharp arrow into the middle of the jungle, where rustling noises were coming from. He said in a low voice to Anji, Go! The moment he said that, a massive black shadow sprang out of the jungle. Anji's arm was grabbed and Tonglan slung Anji over his shoulders with unhesitating strength. Then there came the loud sound of the air being rent as a pair of massive, filmy black wings unfolded from his back. That's kind of cool. Anji suddenly left the ground. Behind them, the mountain-like monster's claws swiped down, but the ghostly speed at which Tonglan took flight was faster, leaving the jungle almost instantly. Anji looked down. Everything on the ground got further and smaller as they rose, and the tall mountains in the south got closer. Amidst the oncoming wind, he asked Tonglan, Where are we going? The wind in the sky was getting stronger and stronger, dispersing his voice. In a loud voice, Tonglan asked him a question. Have you heard of the Fusion faction? Having spoken these words, he soared higher with Anji and gradually approached the peak at the highest mountain. As they approached the sky, that stretch of the highlands was dyed reddish gold by the sunset, and white buildings at the top of the highlands gradually emerged where the sky met the summits. What initially caught Anji's eye was the two smooth-looking cylindrical white towers, between which was a path linking them. Between the two white towers was the building's main body. It was an oval-shaped three-story building, and on either side of it were auxiliary buildings and other scattered constructs. The open space in front of the main building was dotted with all kinds of strange apertures. Behind the building was a piece of flat ground where more than a dozen tall wind turbines stood. The snow-white three-bladed turbines were spinning quickly in the howling wind. A massive deep-green vine that was split into more than a dozen strands surrounded the entire group of buildings, and its branches were draped over the fencing and white towers. When Tonglan and Anji landed, a vine slithered over to them, sniffing them both, then left. They have their own attack vine. That's kind of cool. Like, a little ridiculous, but like, what's up, boy? You want some water? You want some fertilizer? You want a treat? You want a treat? Good boy. The massive black wings on Tonglan's back gradually retracted into his body. While they were being retracted, Tonglan trembled slightly and clenched his fist, a slightly pained expression on his face. Right? I'd totally take a pet attack vine. Walking down the street at night, just kind of like wear like a scarf, all Aizawa style. Uh, just like someone tries to jump you, it just. Anyway, she watched him without blinking until he opened his eyes again. When their eyes first met, Tanglan's eyes were completely jet black, which was an inhuman look, but fortunately he recovered in 3 seconds. The transformation process is a bit messy and not very pleasant, Tanglan said, but I'm already very lucky. He looked at the vine. This fellow can't become human again. Oh, it's a person. Well, I mean, no. Hanji looked at the vine. Does it have a human consciousness? Somewhat. Tanglan started walking, and Anji followed him. The strong winds on the mountaintop blew up their clothes, and they gradually approached the slightly old-looking white building in the very center. 6 o'clock in the evening was when twilight was the thickest. In the southwestern part of the sky, clouds billowed. The huge red sun burned as it sank, its reddish-gold light illuminating the wide-open front door, where a figure was standing in the very middle. Anji actually couldn't really distinguish human ages. Me too. He only knew that the person there was at least like Mr. Shaw, around 60 or 70 years old by human reckoning. But by no means did he show any sign of a stooped posture due to his age. Once they got closer, Anji saw that he was wearing a stiff black suit with a meticulously tied bow tie beneath the silver-gray shirt collar, and that his snow-white hair was neatly combed back. Upon that face, which seemed all the more composed and kindly due to the passage of time, was a pair of gentle gray-blue eyes. Those eyes gave Anji the impression that he had already seen all of the world's disturbances and changes. Sir, standing before him, Tanglan said in a very respectful tone, I've brought back a new member. That person looked at Anji with a smile. Those gray-blue eyes made people feel close in spite of themselves. Anji tilted his head back to look at him, and he held out his right hand to Anji. After a brief hesitation, Anji shook hands with him in a slightly awkward manner. The other party's palm was warm and dry, and his handshake was gentle yet strong. It's a good handshake. Welcome to the Highland Research Institute. We've taken the liberty of calling ourselves humankind's fifth base, that person said. I am Polly Jones. You may call me Polly or Jones, either way is fine, Polly Jones said. With polite words, an amicable tone of voice, and gray-blue eyes that were like a gentle ocean. He was the type of best elder for mankind's stories. Anji gave his own name. You're very young. Are you from the northern base? Polly Jones said. Anji nodded. How did you come to become what you are now? Polly Jones asked this as he took Anji step by step into the white building. The floor was very smooth, obviously well cared for. Tonglan stepped forth and held out an arm to help Polly, but the latter waved his hand. There was a fluctuation in Anji's field of vision, and he slowly looked around. Inside the white building was a spacious main hall. It had 3 floors altogether, but the middle portion of the 3 floors were not divided into separate floors like ordinary buildings, but connected instead. A spiral staircase wound its way up the floors. From the main hall, one could look up and directly see the translucent dome. Currently, On the railings of the second and third floors, some creatures were slowly gathering and silently looking at him from above, their gazes curious. Altogether, the creatures numbered around 40. Most of them had human characteristics, or in some words, they could be considered human shape. Amongst them, one third had appearances identical to human, and one third had the characteristics of other creatures on top of a human foundation, such as a gentleman on the second floor whose face was covered with dark gray down, or someone on the third floor whose hair was like tiny curled vines that were subtly wiggling. As for the remaining one third, they were entirely like the monsters outside or some grotesque things, such as the mass of rotting meat hanging from the second floor railing. That would suck to be that guy or woman. Like, you are literally a pile of rotting meat. That's awful. They won't hurt you, Polly Jones said. If someone amongst them loses their will, loses control, and goes mad, the others will control them. I know that they're all people that are joining together because they have been shunned and they literally have no other place to go. But Mr. Nice Gentlemanly Fellow is very much giving off cult leader vibes right now. Like, not gonna lie. The facts were as he had described them. Anji met the eyes of those changed humans, which were indeed not the unfeeling eyes particular to beasts. Could see the meanings within them, curiosity or examination, devoid of any malice. That's nice. We're all infected individuals, or xenogenics, but fortunately we've retained a portion of our wills. Mr. Polly brought us together, Tunglan patted his shoulder. We've strove to keep from killing each other, and confront the monsters outside together. There's no trial court here either, so you can settle in without any worries. Okay, hang on. My heating pad turned off, and it's really cold down here. Okay. Polly Jones softly coughed, then said, There is no hierarchy among the Research Institute members. We look upon each other, and the strong protect the weak. Welcome to our home. Anji slowly retracted his gaze. Thank you, he murmured. Tanlang asked him how he had become a xenogenic. After hesitating for a while, Anji said, I went out with my friend's mercenary team. This was the place where xenogenics lived together, he knew. But he was still different from the people here. They were humans who had been infected by monsters, whereas he himself was originally a mushroom. He had no choice but to hide his true identity. So he spoke of Anzi's life, coming to the wilderness, getting hurt, and then, after I woke up, I had become like this. Combined with Tanglan's story, he made up this falsehood. Do you have any places that differ from humans? No. Then what you've obtained ought to be some kind of complete polymorphic mutation. Polly gently examined him, then added, Do you know what you're fused with? Or can you control your transformation? Anji thought for a while, then still shook his head in the end. This isn't common, Polly said. How did you survive in the abyss? Anji answered truthfully, Nothing attacked me. Polly went silent for a moment. Just as Anji assumed he was about to be given a hard time, he said, That can also be explained. Anji asked, Why? The creatures in the abyss, along with some other powerful species, seem to have some kind of sense. Sometimes they judge other monsters' racial affiliations, but not through appearance. Strong polymorphic monster may change itself into a mouse, but other monsters can still sense its tremendous attack power and will stay far away. After a pause, Polly Jones continued. If they truly had no interest in you, this proves that you either fused with some kind of powerful gene or that you aren't part of their diet. He said, "You're very special." Uh-oh. Got the attention of the cult leader. Not a good thing. Unji murmured, "I don't know about that." He truly did not know. The mushrooms in the abyss were just as dangerous as the animals in the abyss. They were either highly toxic or their bodies were suffused with hallucinogenics, usually in mists that could make animals go mad. The emergence of a weak and harmless mushroom like him in the jungle of poisonous mushrooms was already a kind of miracle. And he even had his own independent consciousness. Polly said, "The mutation circumstances of every research institute member is different. If you're willing, I may do some research on you. I won't utilize any experimentation methods that would harm you." Unji agreed to it. There wasn't much he couldn't agree to. Then Polly Jones asked him some more questions. Rather than asking further about the process of his mutation, he asked how he had lived in the wilderness, whether he had suffered, if there were any animals he was afraid of, and if he had any new behaviors after his genes changed. He seemed to purely show concern for him as an elder. But after Unji got a clear understanding of his own non-human identity, he was still fearful of human researchers. Afraid to get on good terms with Polly, he just truthfully answered each question one at a time. He also got a preliminary understanding of the Research Institute's status. The first floor of the Research Institute was the main hall, laboratory, and instruments room. The second floor was inhabited by people or by humans with animal mutations, and the third floor was inhabited by vegetals. I've never seen that word, but I guess it's vegetable human, like people. Each person had their own work to do. Some helped Mr. Polly record experiment data, some maintained the facilities, some grew potatoes in the patch of land out back, and some were in charge of hunting trips. These people were infected by those extremely fierce monsters and possessed formidable strengths, such as Tonglan. In addition to hunting, they would also put down guideposts everywhere. Apart from humans, no other creatures could read the guideposts. The directions on the guideposts indicated the way home for the xenogenics wandering around outside. The scope of the guidepost placements was not limited in the abyss alone. Tonglan had said that this place was connected to the fusion faction, but the people here were not the results of deliberate fusion, but rather xenogenics who had been killed in the wilderness and luckily retained human consciousness, and then followed the guideposts to the Research Institute. 1 in 10,000 chance, the doctor had said. The addition of new members was something to celebrate. The Research Institute specially prepared a welcome banquet for Anji, and the main dish was a soup of potato and cured meat cooked by a short male tree xenogenic. They have Ents, baby Ent, or baby Groot, more current one. "Do you like potato soup?" The man scooped a serving of soup and handed it to Anji. His voice was slightly hoarse, resembling the sound of coarse bark rubbing together. Alright, hang on. I'm going to pause. It's about the potatoes. Potatoes are super hardy, but there are other vegetables that are just as, if not even more hardy, such as radishes. I mean, carrots are not that finicky. I'm just like, it's such a widespread thing about the potatoes, where I'm just like, there's got to be some regional variations. But I'm not going to be able to get an answer with that. Like, I think it's fascinating and want to hear some other people's opinions on that because there's so much potato soup. It's like the pork, lotus and pork rib soup in Grandmaster Demonic Cultivation, Modao Zushi. So I'm just like, so much soup. Anyway. Anji held the bowl of steaming soup in his hands. He blew on it, and the warm white vapor covered his face. I do, he said. Thank you. Then I'll make it tomorrow as well. The man looked at him. How old are you? Anji said, Okay. Potatoes are super calorie dense compared to other vegetables, so if you need to get full on only a little, they are super good. That's a fair point. I will concede there. That makes sense. Thank you, Momar's River. Anji said 19. Then you should call me uncle. My son is about that age. But that is why they are one of the easiest foods to start off famine. That's a fair concept. I will accept that. Thank you. I was like, so much potato. Like, oh, I don't know what it is about potatoes, but I took a picture with with my Anji cosplay. That's awesome. Chi Chi Kiki. I cannot wait to see those pictures. I will, as I said, try to get an Instagram set up for Rosebud Reads. So that like if you have like that monster picture that I would love to see, you'd be able to send it to me and I can see it. I will try to do that tomorrow. If not by Thursday. But I cannot wait to see it. Okay. Then you should call me uncle. My son is about your age and he lives in District 7. Where did you live? Anji said, District 6. Right? The man said, I haven't seen him in 5 years. His name is Bai Yi. Do you know him? Anji gently shook his head. I hope he's living a better life. Their conversation stopped there. At mealtime, the people of the Research Institute sat down in a circle, the seating arrangement disregarding rank. Polly Jones sat in the middle, and everyone acted very familiar with him. They acted equally familiar towards Anji. In the span of a single meal, at least 10 people took the initiative to talk to Anji. Amongst them, some were mercenaries of the outer city, and some were soldiers from the base. They were either curious about his mutation process, or asked about the base's current situation, or asked if he had met their Airsworth family or friends. And she did not tell them the fact that the outer city had been abandoned. He replied with, I haven't met them, or I don't know them. He felt a sort of listlessness. It was still a complete lack of news, but this type of answer seemed more capable of comforting humans' hearts than the real answer. After the meal ended, Tanglan took Anji to an empty room. A feathered youth delivered a quilt to the room. It was dried in the sun just yesterday. He helped make the bed of his own volition. It's cold at night, so remember to close the window. Thank you, Anji said. Just like the uncle who had served him food today, this young boy's kindness made him feel both grateful and a little bewildered. After making the bed, the boy took out a bright red fruit from his clothes and smiled. For you to eat! After saying that, he also took out a portion of dried meat that had been wrapped up. This is from everyone to you. Anji accepted it. The dried meat was very heavy. He didn't know what the living standards at the Research Institute were like, but in this age, no matter where, so much dried meat was very precious. Thank you, he said. It's too much. I can't finish it. Take your time eating, Tanglan, standing behind him, seemed to smile as he reached out to straighten Anji's shirt collar. We give gifts to all the newcomers. I found this place a year ago, and everyone was very good to me too, the young boy said. Because xenogenic in the wilderness is too hard. You have to avoid monsters and find things to eat on your own. You remember that you're human and you miss home, but you don't dare to return to the base. Once you come to the Research Institute, everything's fine. This is so a fucking cult. Oh my gosh. As he spoke, he smiled at Anji. Anji returned the smile. The room had no wind and was very warm, and the tube light on the ceiling shone with a penetrating glow. As Anji held the dried meat, he recalled the month he had spent trudging through the abyss's jungles and bogs. Unexpectedly, it was like a dream. Don't cry, the boy said. In the future, you'll have a home. His tone was so certain and warm, it was like he had a boundless attachment to this research institute. This was something that Anji had never seen in the human base before. He asked, "Has this place always been like this?" Huh? The boy was stunned at first, but then he understood. With a smile, he said, "You'll get used to it soon." But the moment he said that, he abruptly froze. A keen howl suddenly came from the corridor. Then came the sound of objects shattering. Tanglan furrowed his brow and strode out. The keen howl continued, and the sounds of fighting traveled over. The boy abruptly cowered. He grabbed Anji's arms, seemingly seeking protection, but he said, "No, they really are not beating the cult allegations. That's not happening anytime soon." Don't be scared. Someone changed into a monster, but Mr. Tang can beat them. Through the open door, they saw a human figure writhing on the central open space, densely packed feelers and lumps bulging out from his back. His facial features were distorted, turning into a gray-colored, swollen mass, and his limbs attacked wildly. Part of someone else's body turned into vines as they fought. Tanlang threw himself into the fray as well, and before long, the figure was subdued. "Lock him up," Tanglan said. The thing was taken downstairs, and Tanglan returned to the room. "We have human consciousness now, but we don't know when it will disappear," the voice said in a small voice. "That's why I deeply treasure my time as a human." Sound came from outside the window. Anji looked down and saw that on the open space in front of the main building, a large instrument was lighting up. "Mr. Polly seems to have been working on that these past few days," the boy said. "It looks different from his previous research." Oh, joy. Different research? Evil lights right after an attack? I wonder what's happening. Oh, boy. As Anji looked in that direction, a glaring red light shone from between the machinery. He asked, "What is it?" Saying nothing, Tanglan looked out the window. The top of the mountain, the aurora, and the starry sky had become so low and clear, it was like one could touch them if they just reached out. Inside the room, all was silent. After a long while, Tanglan suddenly spoke. "Mr. Polly is a scientist of the fusion faction," Tanglan murmured. "The fusion faction believes that there will be a day when they can find a way for human and monster genes to peacefully fuse. People won't change into monsters that only rely on instinct, and they'll have powerful bodies and be able to adapt to the current harsh climate. Just like this." He showed Anji his arm, which had faint impressions of black scales. "Human bodies really are too fragile." Later, before success was achieved, sorry about that slip. Before success was achieved, the fusion faction's experiment ran off. The giant leech infected the base's water supply, and half of the base died because of this. From that point on, the base prohibited any similar experiments from taking place. The fusion faction scientists became sinners. "Sinners to the base," he said slowly. "However, other research has also yielded no fruit. It's only with fusion that it sounds like there's still a glimmer of hope." So the fusion faction scientists defected. They left the base, wishing to find a place where they could continue experimenting. They wanted to research fusion, so they had to do live experiments, and once they performed the experiments, they would have created those intelligent monsters that have obtained human thought, yet are not human. The base would not allow this to happen, so they constantly dispatched soldiers to intercept and hunt them down. In the end, they finally found this place. Tonglan tilted his head back and looked at the vast starry sky. The Highland Research Institute is a set of ruins. Originally, it was a place where the artificial magnetic poles were studied many years ago. This place lies behind the abyss, and the terrain's elevation is high, so armored vehicles can't drive over here. There's also many existing devices, some of which can cause magnetic interference in the surrounding area and cripple the military's aircraft and radar. Only with this did the Research Institute settle down. They've been taking in xenogenics while doing research all the way until now. Anji asked, "Have they found a way to fuse?" Tanglong shook his head. "They can't find any patterns," he said. "At first, they thought it had to do with will, and then they thought it had to do with the type of foreign gene, but it was neither. People with weak wills would wake up in confusion, or plants with weak pollution capabilities would devour people's wills. One would not necessarily lose consciousness after being infected by a very powerful monster either. The reason for retaining will is just luck. And after that, the failure of the magnetic poles and the overall pollution proved that this may have nothing at all to do with genes. Gold and iron can also pollute each other. Beneath the microscope, an iron atom inexplicably changes into something we can't understand. Mr. Pauly said that all previous research was wrong and that we must search for new ways of analyzing." Anji had heard the doctor mention the exact same view. He said, "The base thinks so too." Tanglan didn't speak for a long time. "Anji," Tanglan suddenly called his name, "can you feel a sort of wave?" Anji nodded. He had always been able to feel it. "After turning into xenogenics, many people can feel it," Tanglan said softly. "And it's getting stronger." Early in the morning, Anji opened his eyes as he lay on the bed. He had a splitting headache. His dreams were all about the wilderness, with howls that shook his eardrums, sounds of animal paws stepping in sludge and crying from a source unknown to him. From the jungle came the faintly reflected glow of animal eyes. As though he had gone mad, he was fleeing from something, searching for something, but he could never escape, could never find it. The massive and formless wave was still winding around him with the closeness of a man and his shadow. It seemed to be present in every nook and cranny of this world, with even the dewdrops on the tips of its leaves its embodiment. That was super poetic right there. Anji strove to prop himself up with his arms. He sat up, but it was very arduous. It was like his bones had rusted. Not only were they unable to nimbly move, but they had also become thin and brittle. Every time he moved, he wondered if he was about to stop forever, so he knew that he was another step closer to his inevitable death. Anji sat on the bed for a very long time with the quilt in his arms before he felt that he'd recovered a little. He stared blankly at the warm room. What happened yesterday still felt like a dream, and only today did it have a sense of realism. In a sense, he had come to another human world. The people here were very good to him, but his original intent in leaving Lu Feng was so that Lu Feng would not personally witness his death. Then what about the people here who were friendly to him? Anji's nose prickled a little. He felt guilty, but before he could make any further choices, someone knocked on the door. It was the boy from yesterday. He was holding a tray containing breakfast, and on the tray were a steaming enamel bowl and cup. You didn't wake up in the morning and we didn't call you, the boy said. Uncle Shu made potato soup again. You must drink it. Anji gave his thanks. With that, the boy put the tray on the table. Anji looked down at the bowl of rich soup. Small pieces of potato bobbed up and down in the soup, giving off a tender fragrance together with the shreds of cured meat. The fragrance, mixed in with the white steam, spread throughout the room in curling wisps. Strangely, he no longer thought of leaving. Do I need to say it? C-U-L-T. Mindset. Life at the Research Institute was by no means as orderly as that of the base. The people had no fixed duties or positions, but they had spontaneous divisions of labor. The Research Institute took him in, so he knew he had to give back. He wanted to work hard and do a bit of something, and the people of the Research Institute were all very welcoming. At the very beginning, he would go out and gather edible plant roots with the boy in a relatively safe area. Later, his body could not withstand the cold wind, so he could only remain at the base and help plant things or cook. And even later, he couldn't do even that kind of work. The people of the Research Institute thought he suffered from some kind of unidentified illness. This was a common occurrence. In this world, all kinds of illnesses could occur, and even the whole world itself was incurably ill. That day, Polly came to see him. From that day on, Anji started living with Polly Jones in the White Building to the west of the main building. Although his body was gradually weakening, his mind was still lucid enough that he could be a competent assistant. In Polly's laboratory, there was also a quiet Indian man working as an assistant. He was good at maintaining the various pieces of equipment, and his name was Kedar. I really hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. This was a high-security laboratory with machines all around. Screens were connected to the machines, and the largest one, its optical cable run from the laboratory into the ground and was connected to a device called a Simpson's cage outside. Something that's probably wrong with that Simpson's cage outside. The main components of the Simpsons cage were 4 5-meter-high mechanical towers that were just like miniaturized versions of the 2 white towers outside the Research Institute. And as for the shape of those 2 white towers, after looking at them for a long time, Anji confirmed that they had many similarities with the base's main massive artificial magnetic pole. He then recalled that the Highland Research Institute was the place where the artificial magnetic poles were first developed. The 4 towers formed a rectangle more than 10 meters long and 20 meters wide. When the Simpson cage started up, the cuboid space they enclosed would be flooded with a scorching red light similar to high-frequency lasers. It would resemble a scarlet sea of flames. Everyone at the Research Institute knew to not walk into the activated Simon's cage or else they'd die a horrible death. From the laboratory's manual, Anji learned that the Simon's cage was the most cutting-edge masterpiece in the field of high-energy physics from when human science was at its peak. It directly contributed to the success of the artificial magnetic poles. To this very day, we don't know the cause of the geomagnetic field. Some people have speculated that it's because of the circulation of molten iron in the Earth's liquid core, while others believe it's the spinning of the electrical layer in the Earth's mantle. But there isn't strong enough proof for either of them. We don't know the reason for its existence, so we are unable to learn the reason for its disappearance. Fair enough. It exceeds the boundaries of our knowledge. Likewise, we are also unable to replicate the electromagnetic field unless we create a magnet half the size of the Earth, Polly explained to him. But one of the laws of physics we know is that magnetism is generated by electricity. The movement of electric charge produces a magnetic field. One of the Simpson cage's contributions was that it could show the fluctuating force fields between elementary particles, thereby analyzing how they interact and then reproducing such some phenomena. There we go. As a result, we obtained inspiration for the artificial magnetic poles. You lack physics knowledge, so I can't explain more deeply. To put it simply, the two artificial magnetic poles emit pulses with special frequencies, leading to the resonance of charged particles in the solar winds. It's like you're holding a loudspeaker and telling them, please go that way. As a result, the resonance and motions of the particles produce a magnetic field, and the Earth is thus protected. Not sure how science correct that is, but it sounds cool. Unji nodded. He understood, but only just. You and me both, bud. His work did not require him to master advanced physics knowledge. He only needed to look after the instruments. Sometimes, Polly would be outside adjusting the Simpsons cage frequency with the other assistants following him, which left only Anji in the white building. As he sat there, the night sky loomed outside the window. The machines hummed monotonously, and the spectrometer connected to the Simpsons cage drew intricate curves. Anji did not know what it was recording. The curves were messy and tangled together, lacking any patterns whatsoever. For no reason, he thought of the chaotic and horrifying lines Sinan had drawn on his paper in the Garden of Eden. Upon closing eyes, he felt the increasing intensity of the formless wave and the day-by-day passing of his own life. He was afraid, but sometimes he also felt that he was gradually approaching eternity. Polly came back and began to analyze the chaotic curves. Anji exerted great effort to pick up a nearby thermos, then poured a cup of warm water for him. "What are you doing?" he finally asked. "I wish to find that thing," Polly said. Looking at the screen, Anji asked, "What thing?" "The thing that led to this world changing. It must be omnipotent. If it is in this world, then it must also be in the Simpsons cage," he said. Anji frowned slightly. "A month ago, I also believed that the cause of infection and mutation had to be searched for starting from biology. It wasn't until the distortions occurred that I realized the root of the problem lies in this world's physics laws. Thus, I restarted the Simpsons cage." Polly picked up a nearby compass. "We'll never be able to see the magnetic field, but the direction of the compass can tell us that it exists. It's the same with the other invisible things in the world. Our knowledge is too superficial, so we can only pursue the facades they project onto the world. Look here." Polly highlighted a steady curve. "Everything in the world is interacting. There's a lot of information in the traces of the interactions, such as this line. Just like the compass, it represents the magnetic field. We assume that the changes currently occurring in this world are because of some massive thing that is slowly approaching. But the magnetic field can resist it to some extent. Since the magnetic field can resist it, then it must have a similar representation to the magnetic field." Polly's gray-blue eyes avidly gazed at the scribble-covered screen. "It's vast, surpassing our knowledge. What it's changed is the very essence of this world, but it's right in here. I think there must exist a specific receiving frequency that can see the shadow it casts on the real world." And she asked, "And then?" Polly slowly shook his head. "We must first know what it is before we can think of ways to respond to it." "But could it really be found?" Perplexed, Anji looked at the screen. As though he knew what Anji was thinking, Polly spoke. "It's very uncertain, but..." His voice trailed off, and he sighed softly. "After all, we have also created many masterpieces that defied humankind's imagination in the past." Anji sensed the fluctuation in his tone of voice and echoed his last sentence. Masterpieces that defied humankind's imagination. Then he saw the faint glimmer of light in Polly's eyes gradually dim. Polly Jones looked out the window at the infinite wilderness and the haze-filled sky. The howls of wild animals came from all directions, and within those sounds were strange waves that could not be deciphered by the human sound spectrum. Only with regard to humankind, he murmured. Before we were shattered, we believed that we had comprehended the entirety of the world. At that moment, Anji saw in his eyes a loneliness that transcended time itself. And on that note, we have arrived at the end of chapter 41. What a heavy way to end it, man. Whew. I am still of the belief that we have a cult leader currently speaking to us, but it's been a very up and down session. We got a kiss. We also gave our child to hopefully our soon husband. We have potential for research with the baby spore, who's being adorable, of course. And we have now found what is almost certainly a scientific partial monster cult who might show their true colors sometime soon. Oof. So it looks like if I stick to the schedule, I have 1, 2, 3, and possibly 4 more sessions. With the last session, it'll be like the extras, like the it says epilogue. So the last session would be epilogue. So we have 1, 2, 3. I mean, technically, if we wanted to do a gigantic epilogue reading, this would be Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. I broke the epilogue down into 2, but depending on how it goes, it might just be 1. It might be another long one because that's a Thursday, and I'm willing to be tired on a Friday. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Other than that, like we're approaching the end. Like not fast. Like it's gonna be this month, though. That's exciting. But anyway, if anyone wants to chat for a little bit, I'm fine with that. But if not, I think that went really well. Like we had some heartbreak, had some adventure, and potentially now we are at a cult. What a night. All right. I will be streaming this coming Thursday at 8 CST. I'm happy if anyone would like to come and join. I've loved having both Chichi Kiki and Momar's Rover joining me for most sessions. That's been a lot of fun. I noticed that there were some friends lurking as well. So you are welcome to come. Anyone who is listening to this later, and happens to be in time for Thursday, feel free to join us. No obligation. I'm just happy you're enjoying what I'm doing. I really am enjoying this series and kind of having fun putting it out there. Soon we'll have to discuss what we want to read next. I'll probably make a poll and let you guys decide, maybe during the off time, and then announce it after the con. We'll see. We'll see when we finish this stuff. All right. On that note, I'm going to wish all of you thank you for listening. Thanks for reading. It's been great. Hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will see you hopefully this coming Thursday. I'll be there, and I hope you are too. Good night, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Sweet dreams, and have a wonderful day tomorrow. Goodbye! I'm so glad it's been great, Chi Chi Kiki. Been great for me too. Good night.